You thought signing those papers was the end of the story, your fresh start wrapped up in neat paragraphs and dollar signs. But for countless women over 40, the moment that pen hit the page was when the real fallout began. Imagine settling for what feels like a fair split, only to wake up months later facing hidden debts you never knew existed, a retirement account that's gone dry, or a tax bill that wipes out your nest egg. These aren't worst-case fantasies. They're the regrets of women who discover too late that legalese and rush decisions can haunt you for decades. In this video, you'll hear the 6 most common mistakes women over 40 make in their divorce settlements. Tiny oversights that cost tens of thousands, jeopardize retirement, or strip away security when you need it most. By the end, you'll know exactly which red flags to spot, the questions to ask, and how to protect yourself before you ever agree to a single clause. Stick around, because missing just one of these could turn your hard-won independence into endless what-ifs. Trusting the numbers your ex presents can feel like a shortcut until you realize those figures hide the real story. Skipping a forensic financial review is the single biggest regret women over 40 share. On paper, debts and assets may look balanced, but without digging deeper, you'll never spot phantom expenses, shell company transfers, or unpaid liabilities waiting in the wings. One woman signed off on what seemed like an equitable split, only to discover 6 months later that her ex had quietly funneled business profits into a secret account. By the time she uncovered the truth, the clock had run out on any legal challenge, and her share of marital funds had evaporated. That moment of trust left her scrambling to cover debts she never agreed to and wishing she'd pushed for more transparency. A thorough forensic audit doesn't just catch hidden debts, it shines a light on bonuses, deferred income, and oddball write-offs that can shift tens of thousands of dollars in your favor. Yes, it costs a bit up front, but compared to the life-altering bills you could inherit, it's a bargain. Before you settle, insist on handing every financial statement, bank record, and tax return over to a certified forensic accountant. Those deep dive questions and red flag alerts are what stand between a secure future and years of financial regret. But uncovering the true numbers is only the start of the battle. Accepting a lump sum buyout can feel like hitting the jackpot. One clean payment and you're free to move on. But that one and done package often erodes faster than you think. Inflation chips away at its value, unexpected health bills appear, lifestyle costs rise. Before you know it, that windfall feels more like a dwindling drip. One woman took a 6-figure payout instead of monthly alimony, thinking she'd be better off controlling her own money. 2 years later, mounting medical expenses and a stalled career left her scrambling. The nest egg she'd celebrated wasn't enough to cover long-term care, let alone the rising cost of living. Had she negotiated for a steady support stream, those predictable payments would have acted as a buffer, especially when life threw her a curveball. Ongoing support isn't just about money, it's about stability. A monthly check arrives like clockwork, shielding you from sudden financial shocks. If your ex's income grows, you benefit too, something a fixed sum can never deliver. Before you sign off on that lump sum, run the numbers, project future costs, factor in inflation, and ask yourself if you'd trade a reliable safety net for a one-time payout. Because in divorce, freedom without foresight can cost you exactly what you're trying to protect. Retirement accounts aren't just numbers on a statement. They're the lifeline you'll rely on decades down the road. Yet all too often, women over 40 discover too late that they've left the juiciest asset on the table. The picture a 48-year-old graphic designer who walked away from her ex's 401 cake in exchange for a smaller cash payment. At the time, she needed immediate funds to rebuild her life. But fast forward 10 years, that 401 cake had grown to more than twice the value of her one-time cash, fueling her ex's early retirement while she scrambled to cover living expenses. The real cost? Compound interest, tax advantages, employer matches. These all but guarantee that your retirement savings will far outpace cash now if you fight for them. I've seen women sign away IRAs and pension rights because they didn't understand the true worth, only to learn later that they'd forfeited thousands in untapped growth. Before you agree to any split, demand independent valuations of every retirement vehicle, 401ks, IRS pensions, even stock options and deferred compensation. Ask how taxable distributions will impact you and whether spousal or quadro qualified domestic relations order protections can preserve your share. A small concession today, like keeping half of that IRA, can mean a comfortably funded retirement instead of financial anxiety, because while cash in hand feels safe, it rarely outperforms the power of time in the market. And for women over 40, time is a luxury you can't afford to waste. Overlooking the tax fallout in your settlement is like finding out your paycheck has a hole in it after you've already budgeted every dollar. Capital gains, early withdrawal penalties, and the shifting rules on alimony taxation can turn what seemed like a fair split into a surprise IRS nightmare. Take the case of a 52-year-old teacher who agreed to sell their vacation home and split the proceeds. She celebrated the windfall until tax season arrived and she faced a six-figure capital gains bill on the sale. Without the step-up basis that married couples enjoy, nearly a third of her share evaporated straight to Uncle Sam. In another example, a woman tapped her ex's retirement account early to cover legal fees, only to be hit with a 10% penalty plus taxes on the full withdrawal, effectively cutting her proceeds by almost half. Then there's alimony. Under current rules, one spouse's payments might be taxable income for you, or worse, no longer deductible for them, upending the financial calculus you thought you'd finalize. A simple clause could force you into a higher bracket, or leave you owing back taxes if the IRS reclassifies your agreement. Before you sign anything, get a tax expert to run the numbers on every asset transfer, spousal support figure, and property sale. Ask how each element will affect your annual returns and whether any exemptions or deferrals apply. Because in divorce, overlooking tax consequences isn't just an oversight, it's a cost you'll pay for decades. Letting go of the marital home can feel like the ultimate fresh start. No more reminders of the past, no more maintenance headaches. But for many women over 40, selling or signing away their share too quickly became one of their biggest regrets. Imagine watching the equity you built together walk out the door just so you could get a clean break, only to discover years later that rising home values and shrinking rental markets left you paying more in rent than you ever spent on your mortgage. One woman traded her half interest in the house for a modest cash payment, then spent the next decade battling skyrocketing rents and struggling to find stability for her kids. Meanwhile, her ex watched his investment grow, eventually refinancing at a lower rate and building wealth she'd already signed away. Owning or at least securing buyout terms on the family home isn't just about nostalgia. It's about guaranteeing a roof over your head, preserving equity for your future, and providing a fallback if life throws you another curveball. Even if you don't want to live there long term, holding a stake can help you negotiate a phased exit. Rental income sharing, gradual payoff, or first right of refusal if the property goes on the market again. Before you agree to walk away from your home, think beyond the emotional relief of a clean break. Ask yourself whether you can afford to rent forever, how future housing markets might shift, and whether your children's needs will be better served with a stable base. Because a fresh start shouldn't cost you the foundation you need for everything that comes next. Opting for the bargain attorney or flat fee package can feel like a smart move until you find yourself in mediation with no one who truly understands the nuances of your case. Many women over 40 choose the lowest cost option up front, only to discover later that those affordable fees didn't cover deep dive negotiations, complex asset divisions, or surprise courtroom appearances. When the scope of work expands, they end up paying hourly rates or emergency retainers that quickly erase any initial savings. One client thought she'd outsmarted the system with a fixed-fee divorce coach, but when her ex challenged custody terms and pushed into arbitration, her coach's limited services left her scrambling to hire a full-time attorney at premium rates. By the end, she'd spent nearly double what she would have paid a seasoned lawyer from the start, and still settled for less. Quality legal advice isn't a luxury. It's the difference between a one-sided agreement and a fair settlement. Yet you can't afford sticker shock either. Smart strategies include negotiating a blended fee, a lower hourly rate paired with a modest retainer, or unbundled services where you pay only for specific tasks, like document review or court preparation. You can also shop for attorneys who offer payment plans, sliding scales based on your income, or capped fees that guarantee no surprise bills. Before you sign on the dotted line with any legal professional, ask for a detailed fee outline and dispute resolution terms. Clarify whether that flat fee truly covers everything or just the basics. Understanding exactly what you're paying for and what comes as an extra ensures you get expert counsel without sacrificing your financial future, because cutting corners on legal fees today can lead to cutting into your savings tomorrow. Every one of these regrets, skipping a deep financial audit, trading steady support for a lump sum, undervaluing retirement accounts, overlooking tax traps, waving goodbye to your home too soon, and cutting corners on legal fees starts as a tiny decision, but can echo through your life for decades. Divorce papers aren't just paperwork to rush through, they're the blueprint for your future security. By spotting these 6 pitfalls before you sign, you can turn potential regret into real confidence. Insist on transparency, forecast your long-term needs, and invest in expert guidance that protects every facet of your life. Your settlement should empower you, not tie you down. If you're facing divorce or advising someone who is, remember, the details matter more than the headline numbers. Take the time to ask tough questions, demand clear answers, and negotiate terms that safeguard what you've built. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you avoid these common traps, hit subscribe, share your story in the comments, and let us know which regret you'll watch out for. Here's to a future defined by smart choices, not old mistakes.